Hey guys, thanks for joining me up to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Funkoverse. This is a brand new game from Funko Games. It is a 2 to 4 player game that takes roughly 20 to 60 minutes to play and is a competitive head-to-head game. In this game, the players are going to be using their collection of figures to come up with a team that they're going to go after the other player, and then they're going to choose a scenario that they want to play, and there's going to be a whole selection of different scenarios that are included in each one of the boxes. And then the player that is able to achieve the victory conditions for that scenario will be the overall winner. So as always, if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference, helps me to continue to grow and be able to produce these videos. And if you want to stay up to date on all my videos, also considering that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new content. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you guys how to play. There's a set of 6-sided dice included in the game. Each of these die will have 3 sides with stars on them, 2 sides with shields, and 1 side with an exclamation point. These are going to be mainly used in challenges, with the attacker counting the stars as 1 success each, and the exclamation points as 3 successes, and the defender counting the shields as 1 success, and the exclamation points as 3 successes. There are also 2 types of mini cards included. The first one we have are the item cards, and these are going to have a name in the top corner, along with the items that can be used in challenges will have the little star next to them, and then the effects that that item is going to have. Each item will also have a miniature that goes along with it that you'll place in the character's hand of your choice. Now these don't have to go with the character that they come with. You can mix and match them in your collection to come up with all kinds of interesting combos. Some items are also going to have a number in the top corner, which means that when you use that item, it'll go into the cooldown board, and when it reaches the bottom, then it'll come back to that character. We also have status cards, which will go along with characters, and they will have their effects on the bottom of the card. Moving over to the character cards, each character is going to have a name on the side of the card, and then their listed abilities that they have. Each ability is going to have a cost that you must spend in a token matching that symbol on the side, and that'll be placed in the cooldown on that number. Some of the abilities are also going to have the stars next to them, which means that they will have to do with challenges. And then underneath that is the character's trait and their defense and their starting tokens. So with Catwoman, she'll start with a gray and a blue token. Each player is also going to have a cooldown track, and when they use their abilities, they're going to have to spend their tokens and place those in the numbers of that cooldown. So if we use second chances, we're going to have to use a blue token, and it'll be placed in the number 3 spot on the cooldown track. At the end of each round, all the tokens that are on here will move down 1 space on the track, and when a token moves off of the last space, then it'll be put back into the player's pool that they can use again. Each set is also going to come with some basic characters if you don't have enough named characters to fill up your slots. Each of these characters is going to have a name on the side and a list of all the basic actions all your characters can perform, as each basic character does not have any special abilities. Then we also have their defense on the side here, along with that on their token. Anytime a basic character is knocked out, you'll flip their token over to the knockdown side. Each set is also going to come with a number of scenario cards, and these are going to be double-sided, so you can choose which scenario you want to play at the beginning of the game. Each of these is going to have a diagram of how to lay out the board that you have selected to play. We'll give you any special setup instructions, ways that you're going to gain points throughout the game, and the winning conditions for this particular game. Each game board that you get is going to be double-sided, with one side having a small map and all the different layouts, and the other side having a large map. So for this game, I've gone ahead and chosen the leaders scenario, and so this one is going to use the small map, and this is going to have all the different areas for you to set up your stuff. So then we're going to go ahead and lay that out. So each of our players will have a cooldown track on their side, and they're different characters. So we will have Catwoman with the inmates, and we will have Robin with his guard. Each character will get their starting tokens as well that they'll place on their ability token track. Each character will have an exhausted marker. We can place that below their cards. Also place out all the dice you'll use for the game, and the point crystals can be placed out to the side as well. Each scenario is going to outline where you place all the point markers on it. So we have each of these is going to have the crystal on the back side, so you can flip those over. And the scenario is also going to use the star markers to mark our leaders' starting locations. Then finally you can get the miniatures for each of your characters and tokens for the different basic characters. Now Robin is also going to start with the partner status card, and at the beginning of the game on his trait it says that you're going to give it to your other character. So we'll place that under the status card marker. And then finally, we'll determine the starting player. So we have the two-sided token. You'll flip that, and the side it lands on is the starting player. So our white side will be the starting side. And then each of the players will place out their starting characters in their starting locations. From here, we're ready to begin the game. Before moving into the game, there's a couple of key concepts that I want to go over. The first one is obstructions, and these are going to be based on the game that you're playing, but most of them are going to be highlighted in specific colors. So for us, it'll be these blue highlighted areas are all considered obstructions. Now you'll notice that there are furniture pieces or different things that are out on the board that do not have the blue lines around them, so they are not considered obstructions. Next, we need to cover being able to see or sight. So with that, in order to target something, you have to be able to see it. And so there are some key rules with that. So first off, in order to determine that, you're going to draw an imaginary line from the center of your space to the center of the space you wish to target. And then you're going to reference the 4 rules for that. So first off, if that line cuts through an obstruction, then it is blocked and you cannot see that square. If the line passes through a rival that is standing up, then again, you cannot see past them. If it passes through an ally, you can see past your ally. And finally, if the line passes through where 4 corners meet, and an opponent's characters occupy 1 or 2 of these squares, your character can still see past that corner. So let's look at some examples of this. Let's go ahead and say that Robin wishes to target Catwoman here, and so he draws that line, and it is going to cut through an obstruction, so he cannot see her. But if he was over here, then he could see her as the line goes in between and doesn't intersect anything. But if she had an inmate behind her and he wished to target the inmate, he could not because she is standing up and so blocks his line of sight. But instead, if he had a guard here, then he could see past his guard and target the inmate. Finally, let's go ahead and say, for example, that we had this situation here and he wished to trigger this ability here. So we have rivals in the 2 spaces, but going through the corners, he can see through that as they aren't going to block it, as the line is going to go straight through those 4 points. And then the final rule we have is adjacency. So normally you're adjacent to anything that is orthogonal or diagonally from you, so the 8 squares around you. In order to be adjacent to something, though, you must be able to see it. So again, you're going to check the sight rules first to determine if you're adjacent to something. So again, if Robin was here and Catwoman was here, he is not adjacent to her because the line of sight is going to cut through this obstruction, and so he is not going to be adjacent to her. But if he was up here, then he would be adjacent to her or any one of the other spaces as long as he is able to see her. And there's some great examples of this in the rulebook, so if there's any situation that you come into that you're not quite sure, check the rulebook as there's a ton of examples in there to help you along as well. Funkoverse is played over an undefined number of rounds, and during each round, starting with the player that has the first player token and alternating back and forth, each player will activate one of their non-exhausted characters until all players have exhausted all of their characters. At that point, at the end of the round, they will check to see if the endgame conditions are met or victory conditions are met for one player. If the players are tied with both of them meeting the victory conditions, then they'll play an additional round until there is one player that has more victory points than the other player. At that point, that player will be the winner. Each round is going to start with the player that has the first player marker, and that player will choose one of his characters that has not been exhausted yet, which at the beginning of the round, none of the characters are going to be exhausted. When he's chosen a character, that character can perform up to 2 actions from a list of actions, which there are going to be basic actions, which are move, challenge, assist, interact, and then there's going to be special actions, which are going to be any abilities that that character has or items that he can use. And a character can do the same ability twice during his turn. At this point, I'm going to go through each one of the basic actions so you can see how each one of them works. The first action I'm going to look at is a move action, which is going to allow your character to move up to 2 squares, and you can move in any direction, so both orthogonal and diagonal, so he can move into any of the 8 squares around him. Now there are some rules with this. First off, you cannot move through obstructions, so Robin here cannot move forward into this obstruction. Now he cannot move diagonally as well, as the obstruction does go over the corner, and so he would cross over that obstruction getting into the diagonal space. You can also not move through spaces that have rivals, and you cannot stop on a space that has a rival or a ally. So for example, with this, if we had an ally in this space instead, Robin could move through that space, but he could not stop and end his movement on that space. There is also going to be some situations where obstructions are only going to block a portion of a square. There aren't any in this map, so I can't really show you an example of that, but if an obstruction only covers a portion of the square, not covering the center, you can move into that square. So let's look at an example of movement with Robin. So he can't move diagonally, but he could move 1, 2 this way. And then for his second movement, he could move 1, 2 over here if he wanted to, for example. An assist action is going to allow you to stand up an adjacent ally. So in the example here, Robin has been knocked down, and so our guard, during his turn, he can do an assist to help Robin stand back up. Again, it does follow the rules for adjacency, so you must be able to see your ally in order to stand them up. The interact action is going to allow you to interact with different objects around the board, and this is going to depend on the scenario you've chosen. Now, most scenarios are also going to include the point markers, so you can choose to do an interact action with those, and when you do, you'll gain a point, and then you'll place that in your cooldown on the number 4 space. And the last basic action I'm going to look at is a challenge action. Now, there are going to be challenge actions in your abilities as well, which I will cover during the special actions section. So with a basic challenge, you're going to challenge a rival that is adjacent to you. Again, you must be able to see a rival to be adjacent to them. You can never target an ally. From there, with a basic challenge, it's going to give you 2 dice, and then based on the rival you're targeting, as you can see here, Catwoman has a defense of 1, so she'll receive 1 die. From there, then our player will roll his dice, and our defender will roll hers as well. Then you'll compare the results. So our attacker rolled an exploration, which is going to give him 3 successes, and a star for an additional, so he has 4 successes, and she rolled 1 shield. So each shield she rolls is going to stop 1 success, and if she had rolled an exploration point, then it would stop 3 successes on our attack. From there, you're going to compare the results, and if the attacker has more successes than the defender, then the defender is going to be knocked down. Or if the defender is already knocked down, then she's going to be knocked out and removed and added to the cooldown track on the number 1 space. There are also 2 different types of special actions. The first one is to activate an item card. So if your character has an item card, they can choose to spend a special action in order to activate that card. The second action is to activate one of the abilities that is listed on your character card. In order to do this, you must have an ability token in your pool matching the type of ability that you wish to perform. So for example, with Robin, if we wanted to perform the coordinated strike, we must have a red token in our ability token pool in order to activate that ability. Once we activate it, we'll place that token in the numbered cooldown space based on the ability icon on the side. So for example, with that one, we'll place it in the number 3 space of the cooldown, and then we'll perform that ability. So with this one, it is a challenge 2, so Robin will get to do a challenge against Catwoman. And then if Robin's partner may also do a challenge if he's adjacent. Once you've performed the 2 actions you wish to perform with your character, then you'll place the exhausted marker on that character, and then it'll move over to your opponent to activate one of their characters. There's also a couple other important things I need to cover. So first off, if you have a character that's knocked down that has not been activated yet this turn, and it becomes your turn and you activate that character, you must spend both of his actions to stand back up. You cannot choose to perform any other actions with him that turn. At that point again, then you would place the exhausted marker on him, and it would move back over to your opponent's turn. And this is going to continue going back and forth between the players until all of their characters have been exhausted. Once both players' characters are completely exhausted, then we'll move into the last step of the round, which is the end of the round. First, the players will total up all of their points, and then based on the scenario they're playing, if a player has met the endgame conditions for winning, then the scenario is over and that player has won. If both players have met that, and they have an equal number of points, then they will continue on for another round until one of the players is able to have more points than the other player. If the win conditions have not been met, then the player with the first player token will move all of the tokens on their cooldown 1 space down. Then the other player will get to do the same thing, moving down all of their tokens. If they had any players or any tokens that move off of the cooldown track, they will come back onto the board for characters, or ability tokens will go back onto the ability token spaces. Then each player is going to remove all of their exhausted tokens on their characters. And the first player token will be passed to the other player for that player to be the starting player during the next round. And at that point, then the players will start a new round. So now that I've taken you through all the rules, I want to take you through an example round just to show you how everything works in action. So again, starting with our player over here that has the first player marker, he can choose one of his characters to activate. And so he's going to go ahead and activate Robin first, and he will start off by doing a basic move. So he'll move 2 spaces there, and then he's going to go ahead and move again, moving up here. Then we'll place a exhausted marker on Robin, and it'll move over to our other player to go. So that player is going to activate an inmate, and we're going to go ahead and do 2 basic move actions with them as well to get up to this space here. From there, then that player will exhaust that marker, and we'll move over to our other player to activate the guard. So the guard is also going to do pretty much the same thing and exhaust there. Moving over to our other player again, then he'll activate Catwoman. So he's going to activate one of her abilities. So he'll use the cart wheel that is going to use a blue token on the 2 space, and that'll let her move up to 4 spaces. So she's going to move over here. Then her second action, she's going to do a basic challenge. So she's going to get 2 dice, and Robin also will get 2 dice for his defense. She'll go ahead and roll her attack. And she got 1 success, and Robin will roll his defense, and he got 1 success as well. So since Catwoman didn't have more successes than Robin, then nothing happens. At this point, then Catwoman is exhausted as well. So then we'll go into the end of round. Neither one of our players had enough points to win the game, and so then any of the tokens on the cooldowns will go down 1 space. Our first player token will be passed to our other player, and all of the exhausted markers will be removed. At that point, then we're ready to start a new round, and we can go ahead and activate Catwoman right away and potentially knock Robin out. Or she could also activate that ability as well, and then hit Robin and maybe knock him down instead. So there's a lot of different options our players will have, and this round will have a lot of points potentially. Well, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it, and I take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. And if you found this video helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it does make a huge difference, helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.